as many of you guys know who I am one of the owners of Skydive Vancouver Island with my husband, Gord Govin, who is in a different room watching this and hopefully letting everybody in on time and go from there. Appreciate everyone who's come out. I know we've got lots of people, not only from BC, but Manitoba and other areas. So I really appreciate you guys all taking the time out to be here. We will go through just basically a general safety day, and then near the end, there is a portion that's specific to Skydive Vancouver Island. And we'll let you guys know at that point. It will not be me that you have to listen to all night long. Thank goodness. We've got some great guest speakers, and I'll give you a little bit more of what the agenda is going to look like. And so this is my welcome. Yay! We're going to go over some equipment. We're going to do some pre-boarding. We're going to talk about the flight. And again, this is some of it's general, some of it's specific because we have a Cessna. I do know that there's people here that jump with bigger planes, lucky them. But we will talk about the skydive in-air portion, under canopy and landing. And then, of course, do a little bit of an AIM review, my soft spot with the AIM reports. And then we have some special topics today about just staying informed. We're going to talk about some progression and about CSPA ratings and those kind of things, and just ratings in general on why we think it's a good thing to do. And then we'll go into our Skydive Vancouver Island briefing, and then, of course, have a question and answer period. What we will do is the speakers that are going to come in for each section will talk, and then we'll kind of give a brief Q&A there. So if you do have a question, what I ask you to do is there is a little button in Zoom if you're not familiar with it, and it is raise your hand, and then bear with me on the technical side of things. We'll unmute you. We'll do that kind of stuff. I did force everyone on a mute without the ability to unmute yourself just to prevent from the little episodes we had earlier on. Apologize for my dog barking in the background. And yeah, so then we'll open the floor up for some questions and go from there. So without further delay, our first section we're going to talk about is on equipment. I'm happy to welcome Aidan Walters. Not only is he a CSPA Rigger B, he's FAA Master Rigger, I think is what it's called. He is a full-time tandem instructor at our drop zone. But yeah, he's been in the industry for a very, very long time. Can help people out when they're wanting to get new gear and those kind of things. So I now need to just find Aidan in my list of people, and then I will get you to unmute Aidan. And I might actually see if it's faster for Gord to find him. No worries. We've got like a whole bunch of things going on. So Aidan, there you are. And I'm going to switch the floor over to you, Aidan. I'm going to stop sharing my screen as well.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm not too happy that Allison said that it's been a very, very long time that I've been in sport. She said a very long time. I'm happy everyone could join us. On equipment, it's one of those things that we can talk about a little bit, but short of getting together with a bunch of parachutes and really looking at things and talking about it, we can't really cover really small details. A lot of the general things can be covered. One of the things I want to stress is that there is a lot of information in the CSPA PIMS or the USPA's SIMS, all kinds of things. Generally, the information you get from national organizations is likely to be better than what you would find just casually online from random people. There is lots of other good information out there, but the national organizations, by the time they put it in print, have really made sure that it is the correct information. I don't want to just cover things directly as the PIMS. I want to sort of cover some practical thoughts rather than just stay with basically reading from something. In springtime, we have to remember that, well, we do all remember that we're uncurrent or less current. But that sometimes we think that just applies to the skydive, but it also applies to our equipment. We're going to go over equipment checks and stuff later, but as far as keeping the awareness that what we want to do on our equipment is slow down a little bit rather than doing things, trying to do things at the pace we did in the fall or towards the end of our seasons. First area I want to talk about is packing. In CSP, a lot of people may remember the acronym PINT. PINT stands for Packing, Inspection, Names, and Tangles. Packing itself in the spring, again, if everyone slows down a little bit when they're doing it initially, take a few more moments to think about things rather than rushing through it, we're way less likely to pack ourselves to malfunction. The details of that or practice with people, you can always do, coaches, instructors, they're all maybe in a rush, but generally there'll always be somebody that has the time and is willing to go over a pack job with you if that's what you need. And it doesn't matter what your experience level is. Sometimes we've forgotten something and having somebody there helps a little bit. I'm going to skip over the inspection for a moment. The names of the item, things in PINT. It's nice to know those things just because communication is better, but it's not critical. And understanding how to remove tangles a little bit, again, is just practice more than anything. The biggest thing is identifying them, and that's done with line checks. The inspection is probably the area that is the biggest concern, and something that not only do we not quite as good at in the spring, but also a lot of people aren't doing a lot of on a general basis. In inspecting during a pack job, the big thing that you want to do is inspect all of the attachment points. So you can start up from the gear, going up, seeing packing, generally thinking of the main, being aware of the 3 rings, above them, the next attachment points, the line attachment points. As you go up the lines, most people don't inspect the upper line attachment points, but as you continue going up, things like the bridle attachment points, the pilot chutes, the attachments on the pilot chutes, the attachment to the bag, those are the wear points and the points that in a perfect world, somebody looks at regularly, but we all know it's not a perfect world. And on the main, it is generally solely the jumper's responsibility to check their main parachute. If you hire packers regularly, they're always trying to pack in a hurry, which means they may or may not catch something. So if you're packing for yourself, just an extra few seconds to look at those components as you're going by them. And there's all things that you look at in a pack job anyway, as long as you remember to look rather than just blaze by them. Maintenance is sort of the other area that we want to be thinking about. We all know the regular maintenance as far as 180-day repacks. And a lot of people aren't that aware of what happens on that. They think the reserve is being repacked. That is one of the components that's happening there. Your rigger in the process is inspecting the harness, the main and reserve container, all the attachment points, the hardware, things like that. All of those things are the responsibility of the rigger at that point. But then it leaves the rigger and it instantly, you could snag it on a fence. I've had containers come into me with harnesses half cut through and the jumper was not aware of it. So things that you want to be looking at your own gear. The maintenance on the 180-day cycle is good, but it's really important to remember that you need to be aware of those things yourself, look at your gear yourself, and that ties into the main inspection is largely your responsibility, so you want to be taking a good look at that. There's just a few other topics. Main parachute checks I talked about. Traveling with gear, I've heard so many stories of people, their reserve was open, they weren't allowed to bring it on the airplane. And just about every time that happens, I find that the person was really pushy with the inspection people at the airport. They have a job to do, and anything that's a concern to them, they're going to stop. The reality is, and they don't always know this, that parachutes, of course, are allowed on airplanes. It's the only place they have a use. In what we want to do with them is remember that if we're polite to them, they're more likely to listen to us. You don't want to argue with them. If they want to open your parachute or say no, if you ask to see their manager, solution is almost always taken care of right away because the manager is more likely to know the rules. But they do have the right to open any bag going on an airplane, which includes a parachute. So, of course, if they're wanting to open your parachute, you can ask to, watch them do it. I think that is a requirement, which is why it's always done in front of you. With your regular bag, but it also be in front of you with your parachute. Do warn them that the pilot chute pops out in their face. They're going to do it. Just like anyone else, they don't like being embarrassed. So if it scares them and they're embarrassed, they're more likely to be a little bit problematic. I have traveled a huge amount with parachutes, never once had an issue. They've asked what it is, they've questioned things, they've questioned whether it's allowed on an airplane. But generally, that's all taken care of within their own organization, just with a little bit of courtesy. The other thing that can help it with travel is the part that they're most concerned about is your automatic activation device. Automatic activation devices flag everything as far as their system goes, a bunch of wires going between multiple boxes. In reality, and if we stop and think about this, we know that it is a altitude activated explosive device. The fact that the explosion is very, very tiny inside of a steel sort of stainless steel solid thing that the explosion doesn't get out of, it just drives a nice cutter across the closing loop. If you ever use that description at the airport, they're probably not going to let it on. But there are, from the manufacturers of the ADs, sort of X-ray cards showing what it is. It lists things like the FAA permission to go on the airplane. Of course, that's not Canada or any other country other than the FAA. But the information on there generally will get you through the airport fairly easily. Of course, you have to remember to carry the card. If you don't have one, most drop zones have extra ones laying around because they just, Gordon Allison have, 15, 16, 17 AEDs, which means over the years they've got 15, 16, 17 of those cards showing up, and they don't really know what to do with that many of them. So if you don't have one, if you ask around, you can find one. And then the other area that I just want to talk about is a little bit on the packing area. We're always packing together. There's a packing area has room for lots of people. I see people coming up and they're standing around looking, how do I get on the packing area? Someone's standing there with a parachute, just say, hey, just hop on in. It's usually newer people that are a little bit nervous of just stepping in. So just encourage them to step on in. Remember, we only take about 3 feet to pack. And if 20 people are packing that close to each other at the same moment, but we all know half of us drop the parachute, walk away for 15 minutes, come back. So you kind of have to work on top of each other a little bit. And then in that same area, you want to be a little bit aware of what you leave laying around. I've come to packing areas that I'm putting my parachute down and I'm weaving it through coffees and drinks and food and people's gear bags and everything else. It's a packing area for packing. Try to keep it a little bit clean. Remove garbage and make it available for the next person. And that's all I have for you today, unless Allison says, hey, will you cover something else?
No, that's great, Aiden. Thank you. Hopefully my internet is still working all right. Is there anybody who has any questions for Aiden? Again, just in the team, sorry, too many meetings. Just in Zoom here, there is an option to raise or lower your hand. Right now, I do not see any. All right. Well, Aiden, I am going to mute you again. Thank you so much. And of course, if
Bye,
something
Al.
comes up for a question, we can certainly get back to Aiden. He's on this meeting, so awesome. Gonna share my screen again. That's okay. Gord just said that my camera was off, but that's okay. Awesome. So the next area we're going to cover is pre-boarding. I'm very excited to welcome Brandon Ballard to the table to present this. Brandon's been a jumper with ours now for a couple years, and last year got his CSPA Coach 1 rating. So let me just go and find Mr. Ballard. There you are. There you go. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. Hi, everybody. For those that don't know me, I'm Brandon, and I'm going to be covering some stuff on the ground today. There's a lot that goes into a skydive, and a lot of it has to do with not the actual skydive. There's a lot of things to be prepared for, mental, physical, whatever it may be, your gear, everything like that. So I just want to touch on some of those topics for you today. One of the big things to think about in any skydive is where you're at in your skydiving so far and who you're going to be jumping with. Are you a student working with a coach? Are you an experienced jumper going on an experienced jump? So all those things need to be taken into account to be able to have a successful skydive. Whether you're an instructor jumping with a free flyer or an instructor jumping with a student, it's important to know who you're jumping with and to get a clear understanding of stuff on the ground before you get in the sky. I want to touch on some physical preparation. That's a huge part in any skydive, is making sure that your body's warmed up. You can do this by stretching or going for a jog or any other sort of physical activity, and that'll help to negate any injury that could occur upon landing, or who knows, injuries don't even happen in the sky at the DZ, as we found out with a small injury playing soccer with the dog last year. So you just want to make sure you're physically ready for the skydive um, in that aspect. And another big part of the physical is your dirt dive. It's really important to plan your jump, whether it be solo, two-way, 10-way, it doesn't matter. It's important to dirt dive your jump. Most drop zones have great things you can utilize for that, like the creepers we have at SVI or the mock-up. We even have VR now, I believe, which is great for practicing your canopy stuff, but it's really great to rehearse those jumps physically so you know that you're comfortable getting out of the plane and completing all those maneuvers and working with yourself or the person you're jumping with to complete a successful skydive. And if you need more information on the dirt dive or physical prep, PIM 2A has some great information on that. I believe it starts on page 11. And then, now that being said, going into your mental preparation is also super important. Aside from the physical, there's a lot of mental things that can go on. You know, you want to be in a good mental state to skydive. It's a high risk sport. Everybody here knows that, and you want to make sure you're in a good headspace to do it. There's a lot of things that can affect that, whether you've had a bad day or a bad week. Have you had enough sleep? This kind of ties in physical, but have you eaten a day? That can definitely put a factor into how you perform in the sky. So that's really important things to think about, especially you want to be ready for any situation in the sky or on the ground. If there's an emergency situation, you need to be able to think properly and act on it. We all go through our EP reviews and know how to do that, but if you have a cloudy mind, that could definitely interfere with you doing those safety procedures if needed. Um, Sorry, I'm just referring to my notes here. There's also a lot of techniques to help calm your nerves if you are feeling nervous. The mental rehearsal is a big one. You want to mentally rehearse through your jumps. You want to do it on the ground. At SVI, we have a van to get to the airport, but not all DZs have that. Sometimes you're at the airport. So you can do it at the DZ or in a vehicle if you're transported. And importantly, in the plane too, it's important to make sure you're physically rehearsing your jumps from every step of the way from boarding the plane till after you land and you walk away from that skydive. It's super important to have that down and pat in your head in order to complete that. Also, if you're feeling poor about your mental health, I mean, you don't want to get in the plane and do something you're doing. It's okay to say no to a skydive if you're not feeling up to it. I've had days where, I got a phone call maybe and it upset me a little bit, and maybe it was just best if I skipped out on that jump. Nobody's going to beat you up for saying no. It's the responsible thing to do, and you want to plan for success with that. Speaking of planning for success, you want every jump to plan for success. And there's a lot of other factors that play into that too. There's lots to pay attention to on the ground. Like what's the weather doing? What are the winds doing? You need to have good understanding of that. What's jump run? What's your spot? When does the door open? Those are all super important to know before getting your gear ready and getting on the plane. And not only that, but to focus on those things throughout the day because winds change, which can change your spot or your exit order or jump run or anything else of that importance. So those are all things that are necessary for your skydive. Another thing too is just being prepared. Do you have everything ready to go? Are you're going to manifest, so make sure you have all your gear on time, especially at SVI, because if you miss the van, Allison will send it without you. Um, it's important to make sure you're ready for your call and to have all your gear there on time. Speaking of gear, it's important to do your gear checks. Aiden touched on some things to look for when checking your gear, so I'm not going to dive too much into that. Most of us know how to do basic gear checks. If you have any questions about your gear, there's always other people around the drop zone who would be happy to help you with that. It's important not only to check your gear once, but to check it over and over and over again up until you're skydive. Check it when you're packing, like Aiden said. Check it before you put it in the van or in off to the side if you're waiting for your plane at the airport. You want to make sure you're checking it once it's on you at the airport, and have somebody else checking it for you when you're wearing it is also super important. Sometimes you may miss things. We're all human. We all make mistakes, and it's nice to have a second opinion before you get in the plane and get in the sky. And not only that is when you're in the sky too, it's important before that door opens that you make sure that everything's still intact. You don't want a pilot chute going crazy in the plane because you didn't check to see if your pilot chute was tucked in properly. So super important to make sure you're doing your gear checks. And not only that, that you have the right gear. Are you flying the right size canopy for your skill level? Lots of us, specifically me, want to downsize quickly. And, I've had some really great advice to just take things slow and wait for that. And the right moment will come for that. So don't rush. Everything will come in line. Don't jump your gear. Jump what's safe and make sure you're checking it. You're going to want to make sure you have the appropriate footwear. Do you have the right attire for the jump? Are you doing a tracking jump, belly jump? Do you need to wear a belly suit? Dress for success, as Gord loves to say. It's been a great one because I'm one of the laziest people for getting into the right suit. I like to jump in my street clothes on a belly. um, so yeah, just need to make sure you got your helmet, AED, shoes, everything that's appropriate for the jump. And once again, that it's all ready to go in a timely manner. That being said, sometimes we jump with things that aren't things we jump with every day. The most common one's probably cameras, GoPros. In Canada, with CSPA, it's 200 jumps in your B license. You want to make sure you're jumping according to that and that you're not jumping the gun and jumping with something that you shouldn't be jumping with. You got to ask your DZO or somebody else who knows better than you if you have any questions. People are always happy to help out. But there's lots of other things that can come with jumping with GoPros or flags or what's it called, smoke. And you just want to make sure that if you are going to jump with those, you're aware of the hazards and that it's safely, whether it's a camera, it's safely mounted or it's safely mounted to your body. There's other places in the world where you can jump with floaties, stuff like that. It's all important to factor into the safety of your skydive. So make sure that you're checking what you're allowed to do, that if you're going to do it, it's done proper and approved, and that you communicate people. And then the final thing I want to touch on is just apron etiquette and etiquette going up to the aircraft. Never walk in front of the plane, period. Whether it's off, accidents happen so fast that people can't realize it. It's super important to have good manners on the apron, and when you go on, you don't want to be texting on your phone or looking away. You want to be aware. You want to wait for the pilot to give you the okay. You want to be with your group. If you're going to do any practicing at the plane, make sure you relay it to the pilot, and that you're not going in front of the plane, bumping into things on the plane, doing your gear checks, making sure that you're paying attention and planning a successful skydive. Even climbing into the plane, you don't want to be hitting controls or your gear around or doing anything that could cause an emergency situation. So just make sure that you're cautious, slow, that you take care of your gear, and have fun. That's all that I have to say for this one, if you have any questions.
Awesome, Brandon. Literally 3 seconds before you stopped, my alarm went off. So perfect timing. You kept it great. Do I have Beth is clapping for you, so that's always a really good sign. Definitely, we like to challenge our coach ones, and so tend to pull you from the queue. Does anyone have any questions for Brandon? Again, if you do have a question, the only way I'm going to know is if you have like that little hand up in Zoom down in your reactions area. It doesn't look like it. I wanted to add just something around the AADs. A really interesting report just came out of a whole bunch of skydivers that were surveyed, and a very shocking thing, out of something like 98 people who use AADs, 63% of them did not have AADs as part of their gear checks. And that was a little bit mind-blowing for the group of us that were looking at that. It was a very high percentage. So just remember, your AAD is part of your gear check. Obviously at SVI, it's kind of a thing because of our situation of how we commute to the airport. But, Skydive Vancouver, you guys are right there. Manitoba, you guys are right there. Salmon Arm, you're right there, and checking that AAD, it should be part of your gear check. So Brandon, again, thank you so very much. I am going to mute you, and it doesn't look like anyone has any questions. So I am going to go off to my next slide. Perfect. And another wonderful CSPA new coach one, Veronique. Veronique, I can never say your last name, McCune. I can't even. It's French. Anyways. Veronique is here. She's going to give the portion on the flight. And let me stop sharing my screen. And look at, you already unmuted yourself. Sneaky. I love it.
I had to say my last name properly.
There you go. Veronique, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Very exciting year coming up. I'm going to be talking about in flight, when you're in the plane, getting ready to be in the plane as group arrangements and all. We're going to start with some basic rules. At SVI, we don't really wear seatbelts, but generally we have to wear seatbelts until 1,500 feet. Helmets on as well, secured until 1,500 feet. And then always move slow in the plane. And can you please give me space? Thank you. I have a child here that's trying to be a coach, apparently. So once you're in the plane, make sure you ask your pilot what's the safety concern in the plane, making sure you're not touching anything. Little Cessnas that are drop zones are pretty small, so we want to make sure we're not touching any controls or where we're sitting. So that's about the rules for in the plane for that. There's another big rule. Do not fart. Dustin, that's for you again this year. Hopefully that's fine. And then also before you get in the plane, make sure that you ask everyone who's around, what people are doing on their load. You want to make sure that you're not fucking up the load with people all mixed and matched. The recommended exit order from the PIM to be is obviously lower altitude first. Exiting the plane, you have FS, solos, belly, free fly, and then obviously students, tandems are always last unless there's wingsuiters. Make sure you all discuss together who's doing what, so then you are aware. Also know your plane, how you exit the plane, muck up before you get on the plane. It's a really good thing. Sometimes we have the sky van, you want to know if you have to open the door or not. SVI, we have the pilot that opens and close the door, so you don't have to worry about that. But if ever you do at the boogie, you go in the sky van, make sure that you know how to open or close the door if you have to deal with it, or ask someone that's tall, because I've never had to deal with it. I'm way too terrified to deal with the plane, with the door, with the sky van. We're gonna move on with spotting, which is a big thing. Know your aircraft again. Most airplane nowadays have a GPS around, but still, even with the GPS, make sure that you know where you have to spot, where you have to go. Make sure you debrief on the ground. We have an info board, especially at SVI. It says the wind, ground speeds, and everything. Make sure if you don't know how to read it, ask for a coach, an instructor, or the DZO for more guidance. We have map on where we have to look at. So that's super important to know where to look. If it's your first time jumping at a DZ, make sure also you ask. It better be safe than sorry. And then as soon as the door opens, make sure you're ready beforehand. You don't want to hold the door too long. Make sure you look underneath if there's any planes underneath, clouds, if you can see the drop zone. Sometimes the pilot goes, but you're not necessarily where you want to be. So don't be afraid to ask. Also, you could ask your pilot prior if the wind has changed. They will update you most of the time if ever the winds have changed. But it's good to know if you need to give more separation between the jumpers. Especially at SVI, we fly about 80 miles per hour, so it's about 8 seconds between each groups. So make sure you count for that. And when the prior group has jumped, make sure you start counting then, because you don't want to create more delays. We have low Cessna, so it's never really a big issue climbing out, but you need to make sure you account for that. Sometimes you have students that take longer to exit. And then if ever you do see that you're much further now than your spotting location, that's okay to ask your pilot to turn around. You don't want to compromise your jump and then be stressed about it. That's that for that. And then we're going to go for emergency exit. Basically, the basic rule, again, is follow what your pilot says. He's going to tell you what to do in any case of emergency. That's annoying. Please stop. Be altitude aware. If the pilot asks you to exit, if you're exiting anytime below 2,500 feet, that's straight to reserve. So make sure you know that. And that's about it for emergency exit. Obviously, if ever there's any snag, there's any gear malfunction in the plane, make sure that you let everyone know what's going on. Same would go for someone exiting the plane and something is snagged, either push them out or, you want to save their life and your life if ever, pilot chute is stuck in the door or something. Make sure that's not happening, which is also an important thing when you jump from the plane. You don't want to create any snag from any of your gear, or especially I've seen many people jumping and exiting and ride the slide, and then they have their pilot chute getting caught by the door slightly. So you really want to make sure that you look at that. You're really aware of all your equipment around you, especially nowadays. Now people have big long GoPros and all that around them. So make sure that you look at that. So that's it for emergency exit. During the flight, you want to make sure that you do what they call the 3x3 check. So 3 handles, 3 straps, 3 accessories, and 2 pins. I know Brendan already said you do that before boarding, but also do it before you exit the plane. Make sure that everything is ready to go. Sometimes in plane, the pin has popped, or the pilot chute is out. So you want to make sure that you're good to go. Ask for a buddy check if ever in the plane, especially students or novices, you want to get checked. Or, I mean, obviously more experienced jumper, they can look at their pin. So make sure that you've looked at your gear, know your jump run, exit path, track direction, landing direction prior to boarding as well. And again, if something has changed, the pilot's going to let you know. So that's it for checks. Make sure for relaxation and breathing in the plane as well, especially again for novices and newer jumpers. You want to make sure that you have good breathing techniques. It can be really nerve-wracking to climb up and then all the way up till the door opens. It's loud, it's windy, it's scary. You're still pretty new at it. So practice some breathing technique. Do yoga maybe with me or Sandy in the morning just to calm you down. So that's for technique. Make sure you mentally rehearse the performances you're going to do at least 3 times during the climb up, or as many times as you need, obviously, but make sure that you're really mentally prepared and ready for your jump. And you do it safely. You take your time, no rush, no big movements. And I think that's it from my notes. Allison can confirm if I missed something.
You're awesome. Love how you handle your kids. Everybody, you know what? Kids happen.
They
Whether
do.
we want them or not, they
They do.
happen. But we love your kids just as much as you. One thing I just want to add, of course, in the case of airplane emergencies, you know, it is in PIMS and we have stuff set out there too. It can be different at different drop zones. So just make sure that you ask, if you're going to a new drop zone, what is their procedures? And it's also really important to know, for example, part of our climb is near mountains. So yeah, you might be at 4,000 feet, but that mountainside might only be, you know, 2,000 feet below you. So it's really understanding, you know, where is your climb, what's happening, but talk to your drop zone. You know, especially if you're going to new drop zones, it's really important. I know one of our skydivers, you know, experienced a plane crash this year, and you know, certainly is willing to talk and share about that and their experience on that. But it's you know, it's right in that moment. Veronique, you hit on, you know, the information perfectly. It is good to know what the general information is, but talk to your drop zones as well. We do follow the CSPA recommendations for emergencies, but again, being aware that sometimes our climb brings us by Mount Arrowsmith, for example.
Or sometimes the ocean.
Or the ocean, yes. We have that factor too.
Yeah.
Is there any questions for Veronique? So far, I see of none. I know my pilots would just tell you, do not grab the seat. Do not hold onto the seat. Don't pull on that. So just, that was one thing, just personally to SVI, or if you're at a Cessna drop zone, don't hold on to the pilot seat. Perfect, Veronique. I'm going to mute you away. Oh, look, and there, you were even on time, like you were ahead of time. So that was awesome.
I did speak pretty fast. I was nervous.
You're great. You did fantastic. All right. I'm going to share my slide. Oh, see, and I just, I muted the kids. So they're like, what? And Beth's already smiling because she knows. Next, I'm super excited to welcome Beth Graves. You know what? Beth has been in this sport also a really long time, so we can't make Aiden feel bad, but did get her Coach 1 last year. Super excited. I know she wants to progress through that. She's a wealth of information, tons of competition, so much belly and big way experience. So I'm super excited. Beth, she's going to talk about the in-air portion of skydiving. And Beth, it's all you.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, I got some thumbs. I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully try to figure out the technology. So apologies in advance if I F it up. We're talking about Safety Day here. We've talked a lot about what we should and shouldn't do. And my presentation is perhaps a bit more shocking. We're going to cover some consequences to what happens if we do or don't do some of the things that we're talking about. And, you know, why we want to do those things. So I'm going to hit share screen.
And Beth, just a reminder, you can share your screen fine, but if you're going to play your video, just remember before you play it, there's a little thing on the bottom. It says optimize for video sharing. You'll see it, but just do that, then it won't be as sketchy.
I'll do my best. Well, the videos are pretty sketchy.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm going to rely on some verbal and visible cues. So can everybody see my title slide? I can see Dennis. So Dennis, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Thank you. All right, we're going to also have some interactive activities, and I'm glad that Veronique was short on her presentation because I'll probably go long. So I hope the shepherd's crook doesn't come out. But we're going to spend our very brief time together talking about how to avoid injury and death in the air, specifically in the air. Brandon and Veronique talked about kind of on the ground and in the airplane. So we're going to talk about free fall. So the PIMS have some really great information. This slide's a little bit busy, I apologize. But the long and the short of it is the greatest danger for skydivers, other than impact with the ground, that is impact with each other or with each other's parachutes. We're also going to see later how our parachutes can try to kill us all on their own. So we're going to cover in no particular order because they are all intermingled, some of these ways that we can avoid mid-air collisions and catastrophic equipment failures. So I think next we have a poll. Yes, we're going to do a poll. So I don't know how to use polls in Zoom. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is click on the chat button that's at the bottom of the screen. And I'm going to bring up a list of A through F, I think, and just go ahead and type your answer to the poll in the chat, but don't hit enter or send yet. Just type it in, but don't hit go until I tell you to go. So here's the question. What's the worst thing that can happen in free fall? A leg strap or chest strap comes undone, resulting in serious injury or death. Lose track of altitude, resulting in very low opening and unsafe landing, or worse, no opening at all. Free fall collision, resulting in serious injury or death to yourself and or others. Premature deployment, resulting in serious injury or death to yourself or others and or your equipment. Uncontrolled spin or tumbling, unconsciousness, injury, and or death. I feel like this presentation should probably be called and or death. F, complete shit show, resulting in all of the above. So everyone go ahead and type your answer in the chat and then ready, set, and press enter. We should see a little waterfall of answers. Ooh, look at them all. Oh, most everybody chose F. Oh, there's some C's. Excellent. I'm going to say there's no wrong answer, but maybe it's actually there's no right answer for this one. The answer basically is that any one of these things can happen during free fall, and every one of them is terrifying as hell and could change your life forever. So let's talk about what could cause some of these things. And I guess we don't have audio, so we'll do the same type of activity where we'll just get everybody to type answers in the chat. You don't have to, but if you have an answer, go ahead and type it in the chat. And I'm not going to cover all of them because, you know, equipment has been covered, and some of my presenter colleagues are going to do some of these other ones. But let's just pick one. Let's say losing track of altitude, number 2. It's kind of an easy one. But go ahead and type an answer in the chat. of what you think we could do to avoid losing track of altitude. And if you're newer to the sport, please play along. And go ahead and press enter now. Audible. Use multiple audibles. Buy an alti. Check your altimeter. Yeah, so quite a lot of references to the altimeter. I also have a creature after my attention. Practicing ground visual is a great suggestion as well. Train awareness. Whoever Julian Flemez is, I love your answer. That's perfect. Awareness, ground, altimeter, etc. Yeah, there's quite a few things, I think. Having an altimeter, of course, having an audible or two audibles. I would not recommend relying on your audible. I have seen a double audible malfunction resulting in two parachutes out at the same time, not my own. But proper maintenance of your visible and audible altimeter. Always pay attention to your altitude, even if you are dealing with a gear malfunction or some kind of an uncontrolled skydive. So using your tools, knowing how to use them and maintaining them correctly, that kind of goes to what Aiden was talking about as well. Okay, let's do one more. What about number 3? What are some causes of a free fall collision? Go ahead and just type your answers into the chat, and you can press enter whenever you like, because it's not working very well for me. And go ahead and press enter. Go slow on an angle jump. Yes. Okay, now I've missed a whole bunch. Not paying attention, trying to do something. I'm sorry, I've lost it. Trying to do something that exceeds your skill level. Whoever said that, I love you too. Rushing to get into formation. Not being aware of other divers' locations. Going too slow on an angle jump. Oh, Andrew, I know you speak from experience. Going too fast on an angle jump could probably also cause a free fall collision. Mixed experience jumpers. Poorly planned jumps, inappropriate participants. Lack of control on approach. Undeveloped skill. Stress from a bad exit. These answers are amazing. And if we're not going to spend a lot of time here, unfortunately, because I don't have a lot of time, but these are all 100% accurate. So much can contribute to a free fall or a midair collision. It doesn't have to be in free fall. I think a lot of it boils down to unintentional movement. So moving up the line of flight into another group, backsliding, lack of directional control, lack of speed control. It's basically moving in a state that you're not aware of or not in control of will cause collisions, either with your group or with another group. Another thing, I didn't see it, but a crooked or wobbly track. We could track into somebody else, or a blind dive to a formation. Yeah, excellent. So the best way to avoid these, we're gonna move on, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the specific things that we can and can do and not do to try to avoid these painful events. Starting with know your limits. I think Brandon touched on this. It's really critical in the skydive, during the skydive, to know your limits and staying within them. And staying within your limits doesn't mean you don't get to try new things. It just means to stay in control and stay aware and be trained for what you're about to take on before jumping into it. I say walk before you run, aka follow before you lead. You know, this applies to all skill levels. I'm not good at tracking on my back, for instance. So before I go and track on my back, or before I go and lead a track, I should get proper training on how to track on my back, and I should practice in smaller groups or even by myself. Nobody knows your abilities better than you do. And nobody's, well, sometimes a more experienced skydiver might step in and offer you some advice. If that happens, please, give them some consideration. But generally speaking, you're the one who's going to be able to control getting on a jump that you're qualified for or not qualified for. Before you know it, you're going to be at a big DZ and a load organizer is going to be like, yay, we're 12 people. Let's go have some fun. So if you're not comfortable with the number of people or the type of jump that it is, you're the only one who can do anything about it. You can talk to the load organizer, talk about getting on something smaller or pull yourself off the load. Nobody's going to make fun of you if you give in if you just pull off the load. I was just thinking about what Brandon said about your mental capacity as well. Nobody's going to give you grief for doing the safe thing, because getting on a skydive that you're not capable of is dangerous for everybody, not just yourself. And again, to Brandon's point, knowing your limits doesn't necessarily only apply to your capabilities as a skydiver. It applies to whatever might be going on. Maybe you're tired or you're hungover or you're anxious or stressed. That goes into knowing your limits. So yeah, jump with others, but doesn't have to be a huge group. Start with smaller groups. Communicate with load organizers about what your abilities are, what your hesitations might be, and just get training. There's lots of coaches at all the drop zones that are represented here today. There's lots of coaches who would love to help and share their experience. Just get some training, get some coaching. It's available to you. The second thing I'll also touched on already is awareness. So altitude, obviously, we talked about it a little bit. Don't rely just on your ditters. Know your break off and deployment altitudes and know when they're approaching. On exit, you need to be aware of a lot of things on exit. Is there anything you need to know about the group that's ahead of you? Anything you need to know about the group behind you? Things like, is anybody pulling high, or is anybody going to be tracking for a long time? Large groups will track for further, will make greater distance, so you may need a longer separation. Be aware of your gear on climb out. Like Veronique said, you can snag a pilot chute, you can snag a hacky or a pouch even, you can snag a reserve or a cutaway handle. So look for snag hazards and look for other people's groping mitts too. Somebody else might deploy you by accident. Also be aware of your surroundings horizontally and vertically. You have to know where everyone is from your group. If you can't see someone, there's a good chance that person's about to try to kill you. With good awareness, you might also spot things that don't belong, like another group that might be too close to you in free fall, or somebody having a gear malfunction. Wingsuiters, you're not immune to this advice either. Make sure you clear your turns and look out for traffic. I learned about that when I was studying for this presentation, by the way, so now I'm an expert. Just kidding. But anyway, I'm told that wingsuits can have a huge blind spot, so be aware of that blind spot. I will cover ground references in a little bit. And then, of course, when it comes to tracking and deployment, it can't be stated enough. You have to look all around you. And I don't think I'm stepping on Dustin's toes, who's going to go next after me, but know where all the other bodies are when you're tracking so that you can avoid them. Have a break-off plan. For traditional free fall jumps, you're going to turn 180 degrees from the center of the formation, not from wherever it is that you happen to be. Wingsuiters and trackers, follow your predetermined break-off plan. And then during your track, you want to look left and right, down, all around. It's okay if you see other people, as long as they're a safe distance away and they're not closing in on you. And then just before deployment altitude, make sure you flare out, stop, and give a big wave. There could be somebody nearby that you didn't see, so the wave off is critical. It's a signal to them to get out of your way. And I put this picture for this particular slide because I think it's really indicative that things can go sideways on a skydive, no matter how careful you are, no matter how many jumps you have or how current you are. But everyone in this colossal funnel was fine. Everybody was fine because they were aware and in control. Most importantly, they're aware of what was going on above them, and they were aware of where their handles were. And finally, we have movement. So whether you're jumping as part of a group or solo, your movements must always be controlled and intentional. You have to be aware of the movement that is happening to you, forward, backward, sideways, every which way. And like was mentioned earlier, plan the dive and dive the plan. Do not change the plan after you've dirt dived it or mentally rehearsed it and mentally decided what you're going to do. This guy up here, he was not in our group. This is me and this is my hubby, Donnie, kiss, kiss. So this guy up here was not in our group. Turns out he had a great dive plan. But he made it through his dive plan really quickly, so he decided in mid-jump to improvise and practice tracking. Turns out the guy's a smoking tracker, but unfortunately he tracked right down the line of flight and right into the middle of our group. He arrived right at our own break-off time, so one of us had to take some evasive action, but luckily we did not have a collision. With a little more awareness, this could have been avoided. We had a good chat, this gentleman and I. And he's going to do things a little bit differently next time. I was going to have everybody call out what he could do differently, but we don't have any. Everybody's muted, so I'll just tell you. So obviously, he could have left a little bit more time between exits. And the biggest thing is he may not change his plan. He's not going to change his plan mid-jump. That's what we talked about. Be a bit more aware of what the jump run is. And so when he does go to practice tracking, he'll keep an eye on some ground references to ensure that he's tracking away from the line of flight. So remember on tracking, the skydive isn't over when you turn your back on it. You're not safe until you have a fully inflated parachute. One other thing that happens before I move on is that I mentioned it earlier, even very experienced jumpers will sometimes track in a bit of a curve and they're not tracking in a straight line. So it's really imperative that everybody tracks straight away from the formation and that you don't have a little built-in turn, because otherwise you could track right into somebody else. So use a point on the ground as a reference. And all right, we have one more waterfall type quiz, and then we'll get on to the videos. So I have a question. So same thing, you're going to type your answer in the chat, but don't press enter. And here is the quiz question. What are some gear-related hazards, specifically in free fall? So type in just one answer and ready, set, go. Jumping with Dustin. I don't know if that's the answer to this quiz question. Losing spatial awareness, too little separation between exit groups. I think I'm in the wrong part of it. Oh, loose handle. Handles. Forgot your rig. Jay, that is an absolutely valid answer. Loose pilot chute. Main and reserve handles, handles, handles. There's lots of handles. Helmet comes off. Loose chest strap, no slider. That's a new one. Pilot chute not stowed properly. Zippers undo, yes, very annoying. All right. So I had a few shoelaces come on. Yes, Dustin, tragic, but true. So the big ones that I had noted: premature deployment, snags, of course, leg strap release, chest strap release, injuries, broken bones, back, femur, pelvis, for instance. Can't find your handles or your hacky. And also you just sometimes, if it's gear, you can't fly or track as well. I'm probably way over here, but oh, I am too. Allison, give me a signal. Do we have time for a couple of quick videos?
Beth, you are doing fabulous, and I don't think any of us are going to complain with you going over a little bit. I have you actually down for 20 minutes, and you still have a minute and a half, so you are doing just fine.
Okay, thanks.
There's no
Okay.
time on safety.
Okay, who wants to see some videos that are absolutely horrific? Give me a thumbs up. All right.
And Beth,
I
do
got
you
a couple of thumbs.
do you see the optimize little checkbox?
I'm going
When you go to share your video, it'll have a little thing underneath it, and it says optimize, and click a button or click a check.
I don't really know how to do that. I was just going to share it on my screen. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
So when you go to share it, there'll be a little thing that says optimize for best video thing. It'll be like right underneath in your Zoom.
Under my share screen.
Do you see it?
Okay, well, no.
Okay, well, we'll just hopefully it plays and it isn't bad choppiness. But usually there's just an optimize thing there, an optimize option.
It says also share system audio, but I'm not going to have audio, so we'll just play it. Hopefully it works. Okay, so this is a fairly scary, but everybody's fine. Gear malfunction. Is it working okay for everybody? Okay. So this poor gal, and this is an older piece of gear, obviously, because it has those leg strap quick link things that most people don't jump with anymore. So an older piece of gear, but when the guy went in to take a grip on her, he released the leg strap on her. And maybe just as alarming is that she was not aware. She tracked off and she deployed completely unaware that she had a leg strap flapping around behind her. So that happened because the gear was, the gear didn't fit her properly. And of course it was older gear, and possibly, I mean, she was inexperienced. I'm not sure about him, but just something to be aware of with your gear. Accidents like that can happen, and you just need to be aware as the person taking the grip and the other person. Okay. Real quick one, just a free fall premature deployment. Oof. I want to just see the slow-mo if we can. This is the guy's own view of it. Do you see how many people are flying around and how dangerous this is when the main comes out with all those bodies flying around? No, we didn't need that view. Here's a better one. I'm going to give a disclaimer on this next one. And everybody's fine. The guy survives and everything, but this is the scariest video I've ever seen in my life. I've been skydiving for over 25 years. I've seen a lot of scary shit. This is the freakiest video I've ever seen. And yeah, it's scary. It's a couple minutes, but bear with me. This one is F, literally nothing good about this skydive. Oops, sorry. So same thing. Look at all those people. They're all over the sky. We're going to get a slow-mo of it, which is what we really want to see. So this is his view. Ride's not over yet. Thank God he deployed as high as he did. Or he got deployed. The rig basically gets pulled right off his back, and he's lucky to have had anything over his head. I'm like having heart palpitations just watching it, and I've seen it about 25 times. So with that, I will call it a day.
Wow, Beth.
That's the end of my presentation.
That is a note to leave it on. I will probably get you to stop sharing your screen if that's okay. There,
Yep.
now we can see your face again. Holy cow, that was an amazing video. Also an amazing presentation. I appreciate that. A little bit hard sometimes when it's virtual as far as getting everyone engaged and going on, but you did great. We've got some applauses for you. Do I have anyone that has any questions for Beth? Again, you need to put in the reactions, do your raise hand. I just got thumbs up, hand claps. And
thanks, Dennis. Dennis is the only one I can see, so thanks for
no
the
worries.
applause.
Yeah, no.
Oh, and Leanne.
Lots going on there. Beth, I do not see any questions for you. I don't think there's any in what tore for the rig. What tore for the rig to become a hat? I think it literally just went over his head, did it not?
I think the lines came up underneath the, one of the lift webs, and it looks like it either tore or it just pulled it up over his head. It's hard to tell. I can put the link into the chat if anybody wants to watch it again. Oh, Danny says the container was pulled off the harness. Yeah, I think that's essentially what happened.
Mm-hmm. And you know, it's a great. We have had somebody jump gear and do something that they shouldn't. A non-free fly gear. They were very specifically told it was non-free fly. They chose to do, and yeah, they had a premature deployment, and it ripped the half the reserve. So when they landed, fortunately they were safe, but the corner of the reserve, that what is it, the bag part of it, where the protection part was like halfway ripped open. It's very frightening. It's very, obviously very hard opening. So yeah, I'm very happy. We will go into more stuff about in-air collisions when we talk about AIMS, but Beth, fantastic presentation and thank you.
Thanks. So I meant to say, it's just, he does go into at the end an explanation of what happened, but the couple of the videos were just to make sure you have the right gear for what you're doing. So he was, on a stand. He confessed he didn't have the right gear. A lot of times it's just older gear because we can't afford to buy something brand new and custom built for what we want to do. But just keep in mind that if it's not free fly friendly, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and I've been working with some experts in movement, specifically track and angle, and it's very important to have the right fitting gear for track and angle, especially angle, because it shifts, it moves, and so those are things to be really aware of. And Beth, you said it, like when you're getting into new disciplines, it's not just about the skydive itself; it's about all the gear attached to that, because what you use for a belly jump might not be what you need to use for a track or angle flying.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Beth, I'm going to mute you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm mute.
Thank you. And I'm going to go on to share my next screen. All right, next, the skydive. In the past, we've done different changes, different ways. This year, we decided to have Dustin talk about canopy and landing. For those of you who do not know, Dustin runs He is a CSPA SSE. He's a coach too. He's recently joined the CSPA CWC, the Coaching Working Committee. So we're really excited to have Dustin presenting. Dustin, you should be able to unmute yourself because I have you as a co-host.
All right.
Excellent.
Let me
Table's all
just
yours, Dustin.
give me 1 second here. All right. Can everybody see the screen?
Looks good.
All right. So, and like Allison said, I'm going to talk a little bit about canopy and landing. So, the focus of my presentation isn't to really go over canopy and landing, but just kind of some things to think about and some things that I've noticed over the last couple of years and trends. So arguably, canopy is one of the more dangerous parts of the jump. Um, and I think we need to get away from the mindset that it's, just the way to end a jump, but more thinking that it's a active part of your skydive. So it requires just as much attention as any other part of the skydive. So one of the things that I get asked a lot is about downsizing. Um, there is a number of different theories on the internet and charts and like criterion. Those are recommendations. Just because you've hit the jump number that it says on the chart in the sport canopy manual doesn't mean that you should downsize. There's some other things to think about. And you need to ask yourself, can you land consistently? So what that means is safely, accurately, standing, and in all wind conditions. Those are the things you really have to look out for before you decide that it's time to start considering downsizing, in addition to the minimum jump numbers as a reference. Um, of course, anytime downsizing or looking at switching different types of canopies, it's always a good idea to talk to an instructor or coach to see what's a good fit for you and to make sure that you're progressing in a safe way. One more point I wanted to talk about real quick is underloading. Some people want to be extremely safe and jump really big canopies, and sometimes this can have a negative uh, impact on your performance also. Not to pressure anybody to downsize, but if you're a really tiny person jumping a really big canopy, there could be some negative safety impacts with jumping a giant canopy as well. Um, you know, we've seen people at the drop zone who have downsized to one size smaller and it far more successful in landings and consistent patterns. So something to think about. All right, so I want to talk about canopy avoidance. There was actually a really good article that just came out on Skydive Mag about canopy avoidance. I'll put the link up after if anybody wants to take a read of it. I think it was a Dan BC article. But the kind of the main points I took away from it was uh, always have a plan to avoid another canopy and be prepared to execute the plan. I always like to think of it as if you expect the worst and everything goes well, you don't have to put that plan into action. But if you're expecting everything to go perfectly all the time and something doesn't go wrong, well, you're going to be a little less prepared. So always expect that something bad's going to happen on every skydive. So that way you're more prepared for it. Assume that others can't see you. this is a big factor in canopy collisions, is not that you're not looking around, but if you just assume that there's other people in the sky that can't see you, then it'll make you safer in your pattern, kind of just like driving a car. So if you fly predictably at all times, others can anticipate what you're doing, and it'll make, less likely of having a canopy collision. So a couple considerations while under canopy, yielding. So we always want to make sure that you're yielding to less maneuverable canopies, reserves, students, tandems, that sort of thing. They always have the right of way. So accuracy is not the priority. So I see a lot of novices really trying to, land and kick the cone because they think it's cool. Let's get signed off for your next COP to get your accuracies, but there's a larger portion to that, and it's not just accuracies that need to be signed off. The performance requirement is to have a safe, standing, accurate landing, and it's not just accuracy without it being safe, right? So if you don't have the safe part of it, then it doesn't really count towards your COP, and it kind of defeats the purpose of the skill. So the priority is safety, not your accuracy for your COP application. So sport canopy skills, we go through some of the skills in like the A and the B COPs, as well as, if you take a canopy course like Flight 1, they we go through a number of different skills. Uh, those skills come in handy for every canopy you have. So don't just dump it after you leave a course. Continue to practice it. It's always a good idea, early in the season to get the dust off, to go through the skills with your canopy while you're just kind of getting back into things. Um, for anybody that hasn't seen it, the Sport Canopy manual is a great reference material. So my next point would be to review the theory. There's actually a new Sport Canopy endorsement manual coming out shortly, and it's really, really nice. So a habit I've got into when I'm, coaching is to have the novice look at the relevant section of the Sport Canopy manual, because it will help explain things, and it also shows them that reference material exists. Another big point, look. So look before turning, spiraling, whatever. You should always be looking around you, paying attention. Make sure that the area is clear before turning into it, or clear below you before spiraling. So quick review. I'm sure we've all seen this before, but the landing priorities. So the first priority is to land with a level wing. Second, into a clear area. The third is having a symmetrical flare. And the last priority is into the wind. So if you're landing into the wind, but you don't have a level wing and it's not a clear area, well, that's not going to really do you any good. So, like these priorities are in sequential order. So I know everybody wants to fight to land directly into the wind, but just remember that it's the last priority. Quick little thing that I came up with. I like to explain it to newer people. Funnel. So essentially, in a landing pattern, we all come from big open sky, and we're converging into patterns that get tighter and tighter until the target. Now, this is obviously an exaggerated concept of a landing pattern, but the point is, people typically tend to become more and more focused as they get closer to the pattern, or as they get closer to the target. in an effort to try to hit the target. But really, the closer you get to the target, you should be paying more and more attention to everything around you because you're more likely to have other canopies closer to you the closer you are to the target. Not that you shouldn't pay attention the whole time, but just kind of a different way of thinking about approaching your target. So some considerations for landing. So follow the pattern. If your drop zone has a preset pattern, follow it. Don't get into the habit of being with the mentality that, oh, there's nobody else in the sky, or I don't think anybody else is there, because there very well could be. Plus, you want to practice good muscle memory for when there are other people in the sky, or if you're jumping at a bigger drop zone or at a boogie, whatnot. Always assume you're in the sky with other people. Prepare to PLF. So the AIM reports in the last couple of years have shown that a lot of the injuries could have potentially been avoided by doing a parachute landing fall. So the way I like to teach it in my courses is that assume that every jump is going to result in a PLF, but you stand it up if you can, versus thinking the other way around that you need to stand it up, but PLF as a backup. So PLF can help not break bones. So finishing the flare, of course, we see a lot of the newer people and even some experienced people not finishing the flare, coming in hard. It's important to finish your flare all the way down, get it as deep as you can, so that way you have a good landing. And another big point is target fixation. So if you're in a giant field, for example, and looking at the one thing in it, like I've seen a novice hit the one tiny barrel of hay that was in the middle of the giant student field at SVI. If you're focused on where you don't want to go, you'll probably go there. Um, so with that said, I'm going to show a little video. I'm sure many of us recognize it, and hopefully it plays okay. But we'll take a look. Right. And I did get permission from the videographer to share that video with everybody, but uh, we back up a little bit. Sure, it's a tighter field, tons of different outs though. Um, you can see that as this individual approaches the field, it looks like the other person in the top right corner landed more in like a 90-degree. So this jumper's approach. So I can only assume that this person was trying to either get into a pattern pointing to the right, or they were so focused on the trees that they ended up inside of the trees when there was several other good approaches that could have been had, like in between the trees, for example. So look at where you want to go. Of course, you want to pay attention to the hazards that surround you. Don't lose sight of the hazards, but look at where you want to go. So the key takeaways from my presentation that I kind of want to focus on is make sure you're paying attention. Observe the things that are going around you. Anticipate what's going to happen. Anticipate where the canopy in front of you is going to steer, that sort of thing. It's kind of like driving a car where you look ahead and try to figure out what people are doing, and being cautious while you're doing it. And the same goes for you. Assume that other people are watching you and be predictable with how you fly, with how you jump, and that sort of thing. Um, Another point I like to drill is don't develop bad Cessna habits. If you jump at a small drop zone and there's only like 4 or 6 people in the sky, people have a tendency of neglecting to pay as much attention as they otherwise would, in a big drop zone. Uh, and it's also goes for like the instructors and coaches, try to assume that the second that your jumper leaves, that they're going to go down to Skydive Arizona or whatever and have to jump with a whole bunch of other people. So um, try to avoid those bad habits and try to avoid teaching those bad habits. Prioritize safety over accuracy. I don't think I need to talk about that too much more. But remember, your COP applications are not just accuracy. And the last point, or sorry, second last point is look away, steer away, and land away. Try to avoid staring at a hazard in the middle of the field because there's a good chance you're going to hit it. And last but not least, you should receive training before attempting a new skill. There's often hazards associated with learning something new that you might not know about. So if you want to go practice a skill for one of your COPs, you should be talking to coach or instructor first, and clearing it with somebody because there might be some other hazards involved with it that you might not really even be aware of. So with that said, that is it. I'll share the link to the article.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Dustin. I loving all these videos. I don't know if we're just gonna scare everybody. I know that I have seen some sketchy ones from people who are actually on this call too, about a canopy opening into another canopy and those fun things. And yeah, they're good, humble reminders. So do I have anyone that has any questions for Dustin? All right. Gore keeps yelling at me because I don't have my video on, but I will be turning on my video shortly. All right. Well, Dustin, thank you so very much. I will let you mute yourself and kick back and relax now that you're done. All right. Is my video on now? Yay. Yeah. All right. Well, the next part is my favorite part. It's all about safety risk management and kind of a review of that. And so my name is Allison Cooney. As you guys already know, I'm part owner of Skydive Vancouver Island. I do have a CSPA Coach 1 finally. And I'm on 3 of the 6 committees, or well, there's more than 6 committees in CSPA, but I'm on 3 of them. So I'm going to dive right in. As you can see from that lovely picture with my handle, I had 2 lovely high-speed malfunctions just recently in Arizona. Not quite back-to-back, but there was a lovely jump in between them where I made bad decisions and hurt my ankle. So 3 jumps, 3 crazy things, but whatever. I'm here and I learned from my experiences and hopefully everyone else will too. I decided this year not to go through. We often show the emergency video. We do the high speed, we do the low speed malfunctions. We show what they look like. I'm not doing that this year. I do strongly recommend everybody. If you don't have the links, I'll put them on here after we're done the thing for these. I believe it's the Australian Gord. Is it Australian Parachuting Association that did do these? They're fantastic. The decision-making process one is also very good. So these are the 3 links for those. And just, it doesn't matter how much experience you have as a skydiver, watch these videos. I know that our novice jumpers, if you're on here, we make you guys watch them. We will make you watch them again if you haven't jumped in a while. But they're good refreshers to remind yourself of. And we'll talk why, even as an experienced jumper with lots of jump, we tend to get more complacent. We tend to think we can fix things, those kind of things, without just really recognizing time is not on your side. So, oh, Danny, thank you, Danny. You've been great posting these links all night. So Danny just posted the links on the side. Strongly recommend you guys watch them. I'm going to go straight into the CSPA AIM summary reports and just kind of a highlight of what's been happening. What we saw in 2023. For those of you who are not familiar with AIM reports, I know some of you jump at different drop zones and stuff like that. USPA and CSPA, we all have AIM reports. They are to capture accidents, incidents, and malfunctions. Very typical, obviously, we see the student ones, we see when accidents happen. Some of that's because of liability insurance and those kind of things. But I really want to stress the importance of actually doing AIM reports for incidences. And so we'll talk a little bit about this later, but I can talk about it now. But obviously an accident is an accident. Something happened, there was an accident, you had to go to the hospital, or there was some kind of medical attention was given, broken ankle, whatever it be. That's one thing. The incidences are actually what we really want to look at to help prevent accidents and fatalities. We want to start looking at the trends. What is happening? How do we need to change things, be it in our coaching programs, be it in CWC with the CWC learning materials, those kind of things. We don't get that just from having the few accidents that we have year after year. We get that from the incidences because we can see those trends. With equipment, different types of canopies, we track that information. It is confidential. Nobody knows who it is, what drop zone it's from, those kind of things. But we can look at canopy types. We can look at, age. We can look at all of those types of things. And it's very valuable information. So I encourage all of you on here, if you have something that happens that's not normal, or that you had to fix, or it's an unusual situation that could have resulted in an accident, even though you might have fixed it or whatever, fill out an AIM report. It's going to benefit us down the road. And that's the important thing that we need to get from this. Danny, I think, was going to post we've been tracking this now since 2014. It's gone through some major changes over the last 5 years, but it's actually this past year gone through another big change. Danny can post the safety management system reports, all the summary. Going forward, starting for 2024, we will see these AIM reports, the data that you can gather, which is what happened, what a drop zone safety officer, what they kind of recommended or what the root cause was, and then where you can find materials, or the CSPA recommendations of where you can find materials to maybe, flare better. Those types of things. We're reporting that instead of waiting till the very end of the year. We're actually going to be reporting them. We're trying to commit to a monthly. Obviously, there hasn't been that many incidences, or they've all been mine pretty much at Arizona. But you're going to start seeing the ones from January through to the end of March will be posted here in the next couple weeks. So we're going to be posting these regularly on the CSPA website, so you guys can get the information on that. USPA, they also post it, usually monthly. So we're kind of trying to follow suit, and we do collaborate with the USPA to look at bigger numbers and bigger trends. So last year, just really briefly, we had 79 AIM reports that came in. 16 were tandems, 15 were students, 48 with the experienced skydivers. There were no fatalities, but for the grace of God, and nothing was related to the aircraft. So just going to be very blunt. Landing is the biggest thing that happens. I'm going to look specifically to students, but it also is the #1 issue for injuries and incidences for students and experienced jumpers. You can see here that 40% was related to flaring, and GCI was lack of responding. So really important to note, if you're a GCI on here, stay current. It's very, we want to make sure that we're communicating with the students. What are they prepared for? Are they prepared if the radio doesn't work or your other techniques aren't working? Can they land themselves? Another thing that I want to note on here specifically, it was under the students, but it's something for all jumpers to note. 2 incidences occurred because people lost consciousness while they were under their canopies. And the root cause came down to they were not hydrated enough and there was poor nourishment. A lot of it came to the intermediate fasting that's going on. I can't say it. Intermediated, whatever. Anyways, the fasting. If you are one of these peoples who does do the fasting program, make sure that you're, watching the activities you're doing. There's a lot of mental and physical exertion on skydiving. Staying hydrated is important. Again, you could lose consciousness. Fortunately, these guys landed okay, and nobody was seriously hurt. So just make sure we're looking at that. And then for experienced jumpers, same thing. Landing was the big one. Although it is important to note, in 2023, we did see 2 separate accidents related to the in-air collisions. Obviously, Beth did a phenomenal job talking about mid-air collisions and what that looks like and how dangerous they are. There was one at our drop zone. I know that's, common knowledge. 3 of the 4 jumpers, 2 different occurrences, AAD fired and saved their lives. There was the second occurrence was a big way wingsuit. At the planned break off, 4 of the jumpers decided to continue on and go against the plan. 2 of them lost sight of each other, and those 2 wingsuiters did collide. Both unconscious, AAD fires, and the details of that and some of the findings and recommendations, again, you can find in the 2023 AIM reports summary analysis. So AADs save lives, super important, number 1. Number 2, planning jumps and everything that Beth talked about and everything that everyone's talked about here, they're important. Don't just dismiss it. Don't, safety is first. And I know that sometimes I'm like the fun police, but there's reasons. We want everyone to have fun, but we want everybody, walking away at the end of the day as well. So those are important things to note. And so as a result of some of that, there's some things that are being looked at from CSPA and our drop zone as well. And I will talk about that a little bit later. So just finally, as far as emergency procedures, just be very careful of complacency. One of the things that in talking to some more experienced jumpers, they were having some issues with some of their canopies or noticing different things, and they were finding like they were trying to fix it or do this. I had a video, unfortunately it wasn't on this computer. I did have permission from this jumper, but upon opening is just, the leftover lines weren't stowed properly. It ended up going through, and then they created basically a knot right in their brake line. And so it's all the housekeeping stuff. We get really quick, we get complacent, we just kind of take things for granted. I've heard now 3 occurrences where people, the parachute is opening up, you deploy, and then we put your hands up to go grab everything. 2 individuals I've talked to have accidentally knocked their toggle out, unstowed it. One being in a wingsuit that sent them into a high-speed spin, and they had to cut away. So just being very, methodical and as people have said, walk through your plan, rehearse your plan mentally, physically on the ground before doing it. But don't forget, those are all the steps as well. When you've had a malfunction, then what? So for us in particular at our drop zone, we ask that you do not chase your parachute. You landing safely is the priority. Don't get tunnel vision on where your parachute is or where your D-bag is. People on the ground will know you're having a cutaway. We watch for these things. We have drones we can send out later. equipment is replaceable, you are not. And so, your priority is, if you can't get back to the drop zone, find a alternate safe landing spot. Do not be so wrapped up in where your equipment is that you are, especially at our drop zone, that you've got no alternatives but a whole bunch of trees. So just be mindful of that. If you are someone who does carry a cell phone with you on your jumps, call Manifest. It's really nice to know if you haven't landed back at the drop zone. It'd be nice to know that you are okay. If I don't hear from somebody, I'm assuming you might be injured, period. So that's an important thing as well. If you don't carry a cell phone, I know at our drop zone and many others, we're pretty much within a minute sending people out to go find you and go from there. Just get to a safe place if you can, and just kind of stay stationary. I know some people at our drop zone have gone to people's houses and phoned and stuff like that. But if you can get to a road where you're visible, that's the most important for us to find you. And then, of course, fill out your AIM reports. I don't care if you're CSPA, USPA, fill out an AIM report. We need to know malfunctions. We track this. We need to be able to go back to manufacturers if we need to. Like, these are important things. So make sure that all happens. And then, don't forget to kind of figure out what happened on your malfunction. Sit down, do a root cause, take it all the way back. On my malfunctions, they were both the same. I was told that you could never have a bag lock on a completely stowless D-bag. Guess what? I had 2. And so obviously after the first one, we thought maybe a packing issue. It ended up not being that. And so there's a whole other investigation going into my gear itself. Anything is possible. Don't let people tell you otherwise. I did touch a little bit on the incident and accident, but again, tracking incidences is really important. It is truly what will help us hopefully save lives down the road. I'd like to track things before they become an accident. And if we can see trends within Canada, we also talk to USPA. I talked to Ron Bell. If we can talk to him with North American data, then it's super important. We can pool it together. For example, we noticed in 2022 when Ron and I got together that tension knots was becoming a really weird increased trend. And so we both started to address that within our countries. Together we have great data. So please, incidents are just, if not equally more important than just reporting accidents. Again, AADs are no joke. I know someone is on this call because an AAD saved his life. Make sure you include them as part of your gear check. At our drop zone, they are mandatory. And just more specifically for our drop zone, and I know this is kind of, I tend to talk about, we want to be more general on this, but in our drop zone, there are going to be changes to movement jumps specific to track and angle and what those minimum requirements to participate in those are. However, I really want to stress that all of our presenters today talked about knowing your personal limitations, but also when you are learning a new skill or a new discipline, or you are progressing within a discipline, it is important to take the appropriate steps to stay safe. So, for example, I believe it was Beth, one-on-one, if she was learning to backtrack, go with a coach, start to learn that, be a little bit, maybe you're doing a couple of them on your own, making sure that your load knows and you're not tracking up jump run or anything like that. Then, slowly moving into more, small groups with really experienced leaders on that, and then slowly progressing from there. And again, for movement, for example, if you're increasing the angle, that should put you right back down to like one-on-one training again, because it changes the dynamics of the jump and it has a whole bunch of other safety things to be aware of. And that is, I've learned in belly jumps the same. It's one thing to do a 4-way. It's a whole other thing to do a 14-way or a 20-way. Far different things. There's changes in that. So progress gradually on your, the way you should, and be accountable to your own skill level and communicating that. Don't ever be afraid to communicate your personal skill restrictions and where you're at. The last thing I just wanted to talk about, at all drop zones, we should be creating a safe culture at the drop zone. And this just basically means, equality, equity, inclusion. So educate yourself around that. You know, we've got lots of things that come out of skydiving, sayings and those kind of things, but just being really mindful to that. We've got, you know, new generations coming in. Educate yourself. Be respectful at all times. And if you're not sure, you know, talk to people at the drop zone that might have more information around that. We're all learning in very changing environments and climates. So, and I think that's it for me. Yay. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a second. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I don't see any questions. Perfect. The joys of safety. And don't forget to review your emergency procedures. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again because our next presenter is going to talk about a little bit more information about keeping yourself informed. I don't even know if he needs an introduction, but he probably might. Anyways, Danny Grant. Danny is the CSPA Coaching Working Committee. He is the new chair of that committee, but he's been involved in our sport also a very long time, despite looking so young. And he holds so many ratings and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, he's the man with everything other than the PFFI, which we really need to change. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Danny, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that. I don't have any screen to share, so we can all just stare at each other's beautiful faces here. Thank you for that introduction. Are you still around? Can you unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Emily, how many jumps do you have?
68.
68. And what COP do you have?
A.
A.
Yeah.
And where's your logbook right?
It's in a bin with all my skydive stuff.
It's with your skydive stuff, so it's with you
Yeah.
at the drop zone.
Yes.
Excellent. I love to hear it. What was the last jump you did?
It was a two-way with Brandon in Dubai.
Oh. That was not the answer I expected. Awesome. And the fact that you got to jump in Dubai with those jump numbers, like that's a memory worth holding, which is one of the huge reasons to keep logging your jumps. My last jump was 2009. It was just this weekend, and I still log every jump I do. Probably not in the same detail as you might, but it's an important thing to do. There's a lot of memories to be had there, which I think at the end of the day is what's gonna be the most important thing for a lot of people when we eventually, unfortunately, leave the sport. This is a book of memories. But in your case, it's a lot more than that. Why do you log?
I log to track what I've done so I can work towards my B, so I have the right jumps and requirements to move forward.
Totally. That is 100% the correct answer right out of the book, not this book or any actual book. It's not down anywhere, but that's why we do it. We want to track our progression. And as people have been repeating all night, making that progression productive and safe. I see your message there, Dustin, and we also keep you happy as the COP processor, but it helps keep us online. Now, for myself as a coach and the many other coaches out there, especially if they're like me and they move around between the drop zones on the island, you guys are lucky to have multiple drop zones. So, you know, people change places and you see new faces. We can't know everything about everyone. In your example, how many coaches have you worked with so far since your first jump to now?
Quite a few, probably 10.
That's a lot, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. That kind of variety is awesome, and there's give and takes with it. You know, if you can work with one person, you get to really know each other, and they get to know you, and we can push your progression really fast. But the reality is that's not always how it goes. So from the coaching point of view, being able to grab your logbook and look back in it and see what your coaches said about you, what you said about your own progress, and how you did with the different maneuvers, where you struggled, where you excelled, what you spent a lot of time working on, what you didn't need to spend time working on, feeds us, your coaches and instructors, a wealth of information so that we can start catering our abilities as coaches to your ability as someone who's learning so that we can keep pushing you forward. So I'm super glad to know that you know where your logbook is. Is every jump signed off?
No.
Oh, why not?
Well, not by coaches.
Well,
Maybe
that's
other
fine.
people I jumped with.
Yeah.
They ran off before I could get their signature,
That's
but
fair.
they're all signed off by coaches.
Yeah, not every jump needs to be signed
Yep.
off by a coach by any means. Trust me, if I needed 2,000 coach signatures, that would be a problem. I can't sign my own that way. But getting your jumps signed off by a certified skydiver, someone with some level of COP, is important. As you start, it sounds ridiculous saying this to you because you've been to Dubai, but like as you start traveling around to other drop zones, some drop zones become much more stringent into you having a complete logbook. From their point of view, from a safety liability point of view, they need to make sure that the person that they're letting onto their premise and using their aircraft and their landing area and jumping with their jumpers and their customers in the area is current and safe and certified to do what it is they want to do. And really, the only way that you can prove that is having your logbook and having it signed off. Any Joe Blow with a book and a pen can write out 1,000 jumps, but it's not really worth anything unless someone verifies it. Which jumps are signed off by your coaches?
Every single one I've jumped with them.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, and that's
Okay.
that's a great answer. And for the
Yeah.
coaches listening, stay on that, right? When we work as coaches with novices, it's for the novice's benefit. It's for Emily's benefit so that she can progress, so she can show how she has learned and grown and achieved what she needed for her COPs. And if we as coaches don't sign off those jumps and we don't sign them off properly, we're doing a disservice to people like Emily. Okay. So for the people who aren't coaches, for the people like Emily, when you do get coaching, especially for stuff specifically for your COPs, make sure your coaches sign your logbook and they sign it correctly. That means their name is there, their signature's there, their CSPA number is there, and their rating is there. That's the important information. So when people like Dustin, as the CSPA COP processor, get that information back, we can verify that, yes, you did the things you needed to do. Let's talk about progression. You've got an ACOP, probably pretty fresh at 60. When did you get your ACOP? How many jumps?
I got it. Yeah, about around 57.
Bet you wish you had a
And
logbook in front of you, hey?
yeah. Yeah, I haven't quite started my B, but I plan to this season.
And that's cool. There's
Yeah.
no need to go from one to the other to the other. You progress at your own pace. Again, people have said it over and over tonight. No one knows your skills quite as well as you do. And to the same tone, no one knows your progression rate and what it should be like you do. We all progress at our own rates. I was close to 2, maybe 300 jumps before I got a B Cop. So, just go as fast as you want, but do it safely, do it properly. There are resources available to us to help guide us through a safe progression to get our COPs, to learn the more advanced disciplines. Are there any disciplines that you're interested in, things that you're pursuing, things you want to do in the sky?
I'd like to do belly. I used to say free fly. I still would like to try that, but I just want to stick with one thing that I'm already working on. So yeah.
That's Awesome. I love it. I love it. I myself mainly a belly flyer and some wingsuit. I can free fly, but it's not super pretty. I'm seeing lots of yay belly in the chat. I love it. So you got lots of support at your drop zone for that. But to get your B Cop to work towards bigger group jumps, do you know what resources are available to you if you decided to do some self-directed learning?
No.
Oh, perfect. I was worried you were going to have all the answers, Emily. Great. So for all the coaches and all the novices out there, things that are fantastic tools for the novice skydivers, PIM2A and PIM2B, fantastic sources of information. And for everyone here, PIM2A maybe sometime this year is going to get released with brand new content, brand new images, and it's not going to look like it was photocopied from a typewriter in the 90s. It has been fully refreshed as of this winter. It's just getting prettied up now. Those are both available on the CSPA website. Tons of information in there, but they are targeted towards people working towards their ACOP, that's PIM2A, and people working towards their BCOP, that's PIM2B. Took me years before I learned that 2A is for ACOP, 2B is for BCOP. You're now all smarter than I was 10 years ago. So those are two great resources to start with. There's also the CSPA skills grid. It lists out all the basic skills you need working towards each of your COPs. You can find that in PIM2A. I don't think it's in PIM2B anymore, but it's definitely in PIM1. It's probably like your granddaddy of basic information to pursue. There's some other great resources available to you, and you obviously got access to a lot of them because you've worked with at least 10 of them, you say, and that's your coaches, your C1s, your C2s, the instructors, the PFFIs. All the rating holders out there have strong knowledge, good skills, the ability to teach adults, and they can be a wealth of information to help you progress. So definitely lean on them. But if you're a self-directed learning kind of individual, look at the PIMS. There is so much good information there.
Okay.
So answer that question. All right. I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I'm just going to push on. Talk about ratings, talking about coaches. Have you ever thought about coaching, Emily?
Yeah, I have.
Why?
I don't know. I feel like my experience with starting skydiving could encourage others, and I have a passion for the sport now, and yeah.
That is fantastic to hear. I really do encourage almost everyone to go pursue even just a coach one. It's a very basic coach rating. There's not a lot really to the course in terms of skydiving, but there is a lot of content in there towards understanding who you're working with, being able to efficiently share ideas and teach people new skills and evaluate their ability to perform those skills. But more than anything, and this kind of reflects on my experience, again, 200-300 jumps before I had a B Cop, is the ability to give back to the sport. We are a very, very small community. Across Canada, I think we're under 3,000 people. And that community really is built on giving back and mentorship. Right, we all learn from those who have more experience than us, who have been around longer than us, learn things that we haven't learned yet. And as skydivers, coach ratings or not, let's be honest, we all love talking about skydiving, and we're basically all willing to help someone here and there, help them with their packing, help them plan their jumps, help them learn new exits and what have it. I rarely go to a drop zone anywhere in the world and hear someone ask a question that doesn't get answered. Now, where rating system comes in is it is very heavily leaning on teaching adults the ability to teach adults, as kind of mumbled up as that sounds. We all have the information and skills, but it's that ability to pass it on and mentor others that really makes our system strong and helps us develop what is actually world-class athletes. So if you do want to get a coaching rating, keep working towards that BCOP. That's all you need to start the C1 course. Is just the BCOP, 50 jumps. That's it. It's a very easy program to enter, and I do encourage anyone who's interested in it to go ahead and pursue it. We've got more and more LFs coming on board on the island there. You've got 2 in training, so hopefully in the next season or 2, the coaching programs are going to be that much more accessible. But if you've ever got questions about the rating system, ask Dustin first, because then he's just going to ask me anyways, but you can always reach out to me. And that's all I've got. Emily, thank you for playing along with me. I planned none of this up until I asked you about it about half an hour ago. So thank you for playing along.
Yeah, thank you.
If anyone has any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Danny Grant. I'm going to, oh, sorry, Gord keeps yelling because I don't have my video on. Hello.
I think I see a hand up. Leah?
Yeah. Let me just look at hands. Did we have a hand? Do you have a hand?
I thought so. I could have been seeing something. I've got too much screen in front
Oh,
of
I
me.
have people clapping for you.
Oh.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone.
Danny, thank you so much. I'll let you mute yourself. And
What if I don't want to?
Oops, what am I doing here? Share screen. And I believe before, yeah. Oh, so I'm just going to go in because we've just concluded the part that is for everybody. That's not our drop zone specific, although everybody's welcome to stay and we're still talking about general things in ours. I just wanted to thank everybody who attended this portion. I hope you do all continue. But as you guys know, this is just the, oh, there's your timer, Danny. This is the kickoff to what we've kind of started now an annual tradition for the safety seminar series. So next week on Tuesday, we do have a presentation by Dustin Renz, who you met. It is for CSPA instructors and coaches, but really generally anyone who's an instructor or coach, whether it's USPA or even if you're interested, by all means, this is an open for you guys to attend that one. So it's a safety seminar for instructors and coaches. The following week, it is going to be on a Thursday, a little switch up there, but it is for anyone who's a rigger or a packer, be it FAA, be it just a packer with no rigging, or a CSPA rigger. This one is presented by Bill Pentney, who is this technical and safety committee chair. He's also been a longtime rigger, and he's got guests as well. And then really excited to have Caitlin Escott. She will be presenting the following Tuesday on the 23rd. This one is for wingsuiting. Yeah. It's been a few years since we had the wingsuiting safety seminar. And so we thought, well, it's time to, well, actually from some things, it's the third #1 course that comes out in Canada is wingsuiting courses. Third #1 with whatever, third. Coaching being the first canopy courses. But so really excited for anyone who is a wingsuiter or really wanting to venture into wingsuiting. This might be the seminar for you. And then finally, we're going to wrap up our seminar series with our tandem instructor safety review seminar. This one has been wildly attended by people, including Bill Booth. But that presentation is for any tandem instructors. It is specific UPT Sigma Vector, although if you're a strong tandem instructor, really, you know, there'll be some differences, but most of it is all the same. So those are some of the seminars coming up with us. And so that's that. I also would love to inform everyone and invite everyone to, if you didn't get a chance to go to the Inspire conference last year, we had a really big conference last year through the Women's Initiatives Committee. And this is open to everybody, doesn't matter, women, men, doesn't matter. But we're having a mini seminar, and this is actually happening on this Sunday, April 7th. It is through Zoom. and with CSPA. There's one in French in the morning and one in English in the evening or in the afternoon. So there's different times. But we are going to start talking about navigating the world of competitive skydiving. And so whether you are brand new, just got your solo, or you're like Beth and have tons of experience in this area, it's just a really awesome presentation on different ways to get involved, and to maybe think about the world of competition, and what that looks like. And Renee Point is going to be the guest speaker on that. So super excited for that. The seminar is only an hour and a half. And that actually is with questions and all that kind of stuff as well. So you can look to the CSPA website for that information, or their Facebook page. The other big thing that's coming is the 2024 Canadian Virtual National Parachuting Competition. That was a mouthful. So CSPA, every other year we run nationals, and so we're in an off year. And so this year CSPA has put out the Virtual National Parachuting Competition, which Skydive Vancouver Island is excited to be a part of. And we're going to plan some really fun weekends if anyone wants to join. You can see some of the disciplines on the side there that are going to be accepted. I know Beth and I talked about this, but like Brandon and Emily, you could have like the Ballard belly whatever team, and so there's two-way opportunities and stuff in there as well. So we're going to be really supporting this over at our drop zone this year, but it's across Canada, so hopefully you all get involved at your drop zones as well. And there's more information on that at the CSPA website too. And then last but not least, hopefully you guys have heard of the World Skydiving. There's an attempt across multiple associations. CSPA is part of this as well, to create a world record, but it's not a world record but basically a world record. And anyone who skydives on the day, which unfortunately right now my thing is blocking, but I think it's July 15th, 13th, July 13th. You can get like a little certificate. It's worldwide. We're trying to get as many people out there, whether you're doing hop and pops, whether you're having some, maybe your four-way team is practicing with the virtual comp, whether it's a tandem, we're just counting every jump. So at our drop zone, we're going to make kind of a day of it. We're going to have some fun in the evening. There's some drop zones that are doing some crazy things as well, but just get involved. And if you want more information, definitely the CSPA website. But everyone, like, just jump your face off that day. Hopefully it's not raining here, but it's just a really cool thing that's worldwide. And so that concludes, I'm just going to stop this. That concludes the part for that's like the general. I'm going to pass the floor over to Gord here for a little bit. That is just drop zone for SVI. It's about 15 minutes or so. But I will give an opportunity if anyone wants to leave the call because you are from Winnipeg. Oh, Gord, sorry. And then, yeah, Jess Harper, thank you for being Jan, thank you for being here. I can't wait to see the babies. And to everybody else, I know there's lots of Manitoba people on here. Thank you very much. But yeah, if you're planning on jumping with us or you want to stay on just because we're cool and awesome, we probably only got another about, we can all see you just coughing with your video. We've got about another 15 minutes or so, and then we'll be all wrapped up. So other than that, does anyone have any questions that they want before I sign this over to Gord? No? All right. Thank you again, everybody. I am going to switch this over to Gord, and I'm just going to share my screen. I got to mute a whole bunch of stuff here, but all right. Do you want me to share the screen?
Hello, yes, please. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and hope you're doing great. And thanks for attending today. The attendance has been awesome, and Allison are both very excited about it. I have a bit of a cold, so if I go into a coughing fit and I pass out or something, somebody call 911 for me. Facilities. What's new this year? Well, not a heck of a lot. Kind of the same as last year. I'm expecting the camping is going to be in the same place. I've been talking to Sam and Rob about maybe trying to provide some power down there or whatever. So they're working on some ideas for that. But it sounds like the lavender shop might be open a little bit later this year. It doesn't sound like it's opening until May. And so if you're bringing refreshments and stuff in the meantime, make sure you're you got your stuff, because you can't rely on the lavender shop to be able to get your stuff. First thing in the season, opening day is April 12th, which I think everybody's aware of. We're doing our pilot training right now. We're day one into it, and it's coming along fine. And so we're hopefully going to be flying some planes maybe this weekend. So there might be an opportunity for some instructors, or some people do a couple of recurrency jumps maybe, but not a lot. The main opening day is going to be April 12th, which is the following Friday. And we're hoping to have both planes be able to go right off the bat there. Some student field closures. We always like to talk about that. Well, the good news is that the 5K Foam Fest is coming back to the Arbutus Meadows Event Center. So that means that Rob has to get the hay off the bottom field earlier, which means that we don't have to shut down for as long for students, which is kind of a nice thing. So that works out really well for us. So the 5K Foam Fest is scheduled for, I think it's first weekend of June. And so we'll probably not have student access for probably the last 2 weeks of May is what I'm anticipating, depending on how fast the hay starts to grow in the top field. But once he cuts the hay in the bottom field, and after the 5K Foam Fest, then we'll be able to land in the bottom, or in the front field. And then after that, we'll move to the other one. Alice is looking at me.
Students, you have to have a B Corp.
Oh, less than a B Corp, I guess, too. There you go. Alice knows everything. So it should be only closed for a couple of weeks from the middle of May till beginning of June. And then the 5K Foam Fest is always a big event. Last year, every year that this event goes on, people always go, "Oh, we should have put a skydiving team into this event." So I hope that somebody gets excited and does that. So, because it'd be kind of fun to have a skydiving team that kicked some butt and had some fun playing in the foam. The 2020, yeah, there you go, Ronnie. Yes, let's do it. There you go. The 2024 Skydive Vancouver Island team. A lot of our team's the same. So, we have Aiden's coming back as our full-time guy this year. And you're going to see Chris Baribeau and Gavin doing a little bit more tandem duties. And the usual suspects with Dustin and Wade and Brian Broken Leg and all those guys will still be doing their stuff. Ray Hagvelt, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, is actually he helped us out with the PFF program a couple of years ago, and he will be back. He'll be back here for most of July and August. It sounds like he's moving from Finland over here with his wife, and plans to being at the drop zone a lot. So he'll probably be helping out with the PFF program, and Don will be hopefully be able to help out a little bit here and there with the PFF program as well. I don't think he can get the what do you have, 7 months off of work last year to accommodate us for the $322 that we paid him for it. So maybe that didn't work out so well. So, but thank you, Don, for looking after the PFF program last year. You did an absolutely spectacular job, and we're starting to get a few bookings for this year, which is really nice to see. So our first camp is almost sold out. We got one spot. Oh, it's sold out today. Look at that. We got a few new staff like we do every single year. This year we've got 2 new pilots. I think they're both on the call here probably. Joey Yang from London, Ontario, and also PEI, and he's kind of lived all over the place. And so he'll be flying our 206 this year. So he's awesome. He used to be a flight instructor in London, Ontario, and Windsor, and he's kind of bounced around a little bit or whatever. And I've never jumped out of a plane, but today he expressed a definite interest in trying that later on. And then our 182 pilot is Dustin Stratford, who comes to us all the way from North Vancouver. And he's currently in his camper van out at the drop zone, waiting for everybody. He's got a cold beer sitting there waiting for you if you stop by his RV. And so Dustin's this is his first official full-time flying gig. He's worked a lot with the Abbotsford Flying Club, being their safety officer and things like that. So a lot of good experience, but this is his first full-time flying job, and he's pretty excited about that. And we have a new Packer this year. I was going to say, what happened to the guy last year when he went back to England or whatever, Australia? I can't even remember his name anymore. Joe. So Joe's gone. So,
she loves you.
Poor Joe. And so our new Packer, his name is Jordan, and he'll be starting the beginning of May, and he comes to us from France. And last year he worked at Gatineau Skydive, I believe. And Wade loves Joe, yes. And but you'll love Jordan as well. He seems like a really great guy, and him and his girlfriend will be out in the drop zone a lot. And yeah, was there anything else I was supposed to talk about?
No, I am going to talk about something next, but I
Okay.
need you to.
I'm going to mute. Let's go to Allison.
All right, you guys. So back over to me. You didn't talk about the outs. Gord will actually talk about the outs. Hold on.
We'll just leave that up.
Okay. Gord's going to switch seat with me.
So just a quick review, I guess, for everybody. Did you turn the video off?
Yes, it's on.
Oh, okay, there
Everything's
you go. Okay. So we got a bunch of outs. Here's the drop zones, the big white building in the middle of the picture here. And the beach out at Rath Trevor is theoretically an out. Only Ashley and Dustin used it last year, and that's when Ashley was recording her new Canadian record for the longest women's cross country. Number 2 and 3, the farm over there on Northwest Bay Road. 4 is where the little pub is, and there's some open spaces there, but you're probably going to hurt yourself when you land there. Number 5 is the remote control aircraft landing area. That we can utilize if we have to. There's a lot of bramble bushes around the outside of that area, but the middle part where the runway is good. And I think the remote control runway guys will probably see you coming in if you ever landed up there. I don't think we've ever landed that far over.
Not from wood.
We had a cutaway there that landed there once, but that was about it. We have the fields directly across the highway. Number 6 and 7. There are some high power tension lines down the southern end of those. But they both work as great fields to land in. And it was utilized a whole bunch last year. So we had some Skyhawks landed over there even too, and Andy and some other people. So, and then the front field at the drop zone as well. So I think you're going to that next, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Hey, look, here's our areas here. So the top field is for all COPs and students. So I refer to that as a student field. So that's the part that'll be closed for the last 2 weeks of May, and in which case after that, then we'll move down to the front field, which is the bottom part of your screen there next to the highway, which is a great field to land in as well. And then our main landing area is it's the middle circle there. It's got a B on it there, B+. You have to have a B license to land there. The alternate landing area is sort of more and more becoming our camping area. So I guess if we leave the trailers around the perimeter, we're less likely to run into a trailer, but well, so far so good. So and then the road on the right hand side, Dawn Graves has to come up with a nickname for it because that's the place where Dorothy landed last year when she couldn't land in the student area properly, but she landed on the road on the right hand side and stood up a landing. And she's coming back the end of June, so that's pretty awesome.
Love Dorothy.
What are we getting next?
I think this is me now.
There you go. Now we're back to Allison. There you go.
Excellent. And as you guys know, if you're going to come jump at our drop zone, you're going to get a briefing anyways by one of our wonderful, amazing coaches or Gord. So that's something to go on. It has been a very busy winter, and so usually I have all of my dates all planned out. Right now, they're kind of tentative dates and still working with some of these coaches and people that are going to be coming out for our camps. But yeah, we want to push the camps still and the skills camp. So I'm super excited to announce that we are going to have a very advanced angle skills camp with Remy Angeli. I can't pronounce his last name. For those of you who know, you know. This is a very small, intimate camp, and it is pretty advanced. So just so you know. But we do have Dustin Chandler coming back in for another angle skills camp. This will be a small introduction camp as well as, so it'll be more like tracking, and then there'll be a introductory, intermediate angle camp as well. We have Caitlin Escott coming, of course, for the wingsuit skills camp. She is wanting to actually host also one that's formation wingsuiting, or is that what it's called? Yeah, when you do this, you do. So there's going to probably be a few times Caitlin's out as well. Ben Kirkland is always excited and open to have a VFS skills camp. And Derek Smith, who I think has left the call, but he is also going to be having an FS skills camp as well. And I don't have it on here because I didn't have a chance to talk to Beth, but I also know that Beth, we would really love to utilize people like Beth who have a whole bunch of experience as an LO type person at the drop zone. And so just planning weekends where people can come out and then really work and focus on, you know, their 4-way skills, 6-way skills. And so it's just really important to remember, you know, we have some great talent at the drop zone as well to utilize and lean on all the time. I just hadn't had a chance to talk to Beth, but hopefully Beth is in here as well for more of an advanced FS camp as well. I've already talked to John Minos. He will be on his way. This year, we are actually only going to host it in August. We are hoping to kind of work when I've talked to the Harpers as well to kind of work together in really promoting each other's events and stuff that are going on. So depending what they're doing for canopy courses and stuff as well, but we plan to have John out in the August. Caitlin is very interested, of course, in anyone who wants to learn to wingsuit. So, and I know Mike Sear also does that as well. So we've got a couple people that way. So we're going to host some wingsuit courses, and then we have to have the second annual Western National Wingsuit. What is it? Western Canadian Wingsuit Competition. It was fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, Brad, we did the winner of our wingsuit competition. We actually flew to nationals last year as the prize for winning the comp. And Brad ended up placing third at the national level and actually, you know, is then invited to go to Worlds. So super excited to hear the progression with Brad. And yeah, I'm just stoked and excited. I know everyone who was in that competition had a really good time. And one of them, like Tom, had literally just learned to wingsuit. So that's open for everyone. I've already talked about the virtual, the CSPA virtual competition. We're going to be hosting that. We're going to kind of set some weekends away to do that, or even weekdays. World Skydiving Day. We have a CSPA Coach 1 course. There's definitely been interest, and I think it's already full to do an SSI course. We're just waiting for the facilitators plan. And then more to still plan. For you guys, our jumpers, if there's anything that you are interested in seeing, please reach out. That is the only way that I know to put these on. And other than that, I'm just going to stop sharing this because other than it's such a great picture.
Veronica just asked about Boogie.
Oh, the Boogie. So, actually, and I do have something else to talk about before that, but I'll address Veronique. So right now the Boogie is undecided. One, we don't have Rovic schedule for the Sky Van. Two, Gordon and I have to have discussions just about personal feelings about having a Boogie. And so, yeah, in all honesty, I mean, I can give you my honest opinion. I would like to right now steer away from having boogies and focus on skill progression and bring in people like Remy and Beth and Derek and Ben and Caitlin, and really focus on people's skill and safe development. And then also we would like to start really promoting January. They don't call it the Canadian casual, where we actually all go down to Arizona. I know Beth, there's lots of us on here that can talk about the experience of that way. So Derek, you are on the call. So yeah, it used to be called the Canadian Invasion. It is now called the Canadian Casual. But what I just, yeah, so my personal opinion is we have a lot to do on the island. Actually, we have a lot to do in BC, but a lot to do on the island to really focus on development of skills and how we can bring that to that level, and then being able to bring that to a drop zone like Skydive Arizona is a whole different cool experience, and we can make a boogie out of that. So that's my personal opinion. I can't say for sure yes or no whether or not we're going to host the boogie, but right now that we're just weighing in our thoughts on it. The other thing that I really wanted to just address is we at our drop zone right now, we will be making some very significant changes to anyone who is doing movement skydiving, not wingsuiting, but I'm specifically talking about track and angle. Obviously, as a result of the incident last year, I've had a lot of time over the winter to think. I've had a lot of conversations through CSPA. You know, Danny, everyone works hard in everything that we do, and talking to some expert jumpers. And so we are going to have some very, very specific guidelines in place. Some of you will need before anyone does a track or an angle this year at our drop zone, you will need to speak to myself and Gord to evaluate what level we think you're at, whether or not you're able to be on an angle jump, whether you're able or not to jump with more than 3 people, who's leading it, who has permissions to lead an angle or a track jump. So there are big changes and there are minimum requirements. If you do not have a B Cop and 200 skydives, you will not be doing track and angle jumps, period. There are much more important skills that you can acquire prior to having that 200 jumps and that B Cop, and we want you to focus in on that. So yeah, they might seem strict, but it comes from I've talked to a lot of experts in the area, and just, yeah, some of them would argue they're not strict enough. So just as a heads up, that is coming our way, and belly jumps, free flying, we got lots of other things that we can be working on, and I'm really excited for that. Andy, do I have anyone who's got questions, comments, good vibes? Oh, I guess you guys, I guess I don't know how I can do this. Do I allow you to unmute yourselves? Okay, so just be mindful that there's lots of people on this call, so try not to step over each other, but you could all now unmute yourself and we can but does anyone have questions? Thank you very much to all of my speakers for taking the time to prepare, for giving such valuable information. I really appreciate that you guys stepped up to the plate when we asked for you to help out. And again, yeah, I thank you very much. I'm going to stop. No worries. I'm going to just stop recording this call.